In this business, right is still right, even if you stand by yourself.
New Supreme Court leak just dropped, and it's revealing a court that's more divided than most of us might think. And that's a relief. The divide seems to be coming from the conservative side of the bench, with Justices Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Barrett distinguishing themselves from the hyper-conservative Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. The split is over the abortion issue, as states are actively seeing just how far they can go when it comes to violating and denying women's rights to health care. This split is cautiously encouraging. This all started when Idaho wanted to criminalize doctors that performed abortions in the state under any circumstances. The federal government then said that they could not do this because any hospital receiving federal Medicare funding, regardless of what state that hospital is in, would have to offer abortions. The Idaho Attorney General then challenged the federal government over this, taking it to the Supreme Court, and in January of this year, the court issued an emergency stay. The stay was issued along ideological lines, 6-3, with all 6 conservative judges siding with Idaho. That split, by the way, was part of the leak. That was never supposed to be public. The case then moved to the court's shadow docket, but the leak reveals that the justices had a private vote on the issue a few months later, with no clear majority for resolution. As the word private implies, the public was not supposed to know the results of that private vote. Breaking from the conservatives, Justices Roberts and Kavanaugh hoped to end the case without actually resolving it. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was especially concerned with reports that women were being airlifted out of the state to receive emergency abortive care. Then, instead of assigning just one of the justices to write the majority decision, Roberts, along with Kavanaugh and Barrett, co-authored an opinion calling the case improvidently granted. In other words, the court should never have taken up the case in the first place. The remaining conservative judges, Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas, of course, disagreed with the other 3, but compromise was eventually achieved. Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Barrett compromised with liberal judges Kagan and Sotomayor, agreeing that Idaho had failed to show irreparable harm by the court removing its emergency stay. Ultimately, abortion can now be accessed in Idaho in emergency situations under the Federal Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, or EMTALA. The leak offers a bit of rare insight into this group of 9 unelected officials who dictate so much of our daily lives in this country. Lately, we've become used to a Supreme Court that votes along ideological lines. With a 6-3 conservative-liberal split on the bench, Republicans have managed to score some strong conservative victories under a Democratic administration by going through the court. These perceived voting blocs tend to leave little room for hope when it comes to the justices actually doing their jobs, which means assessing each case for legal merit, precedent, and potential consequences, rather than for each individual judge's personal beliefs, politics, or their donors. So, when any one of the 9 seems compromised, a little out of touch, or even unhinged, it's a problem for all of us. An even more recent SCOTUS leak shows that Justice Alito is so conservative that even the other conservative judges think he needs to reel it back. Twice this year already, Alito has managed to lose majorities after drafting majority opinions, meaning he somehow managed to convince judges who were already on his side to jump to the other side. This happened in one case regarding social media platforms filtering third-party content, and in another case regarding the scope of the court. All of this is, to me, reassuring. When Trump went on his appointment spree, appointing Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett to the court, there was a lot of apprehension over whether or not these new judges were, 1, qualified to even sit on the Supreme Court, and 2, if they were only being appointed because they were expected to be loyal to Trump and to the Republicans. But Kavanaugh and Barrett have shown a few times already that they aren't as loyal to Trump or to conservative causes as we thought they would be. They're still more conservative than many of us would like them to be, but they really haven't proven to be the worst of the judges on that bench. We have George W. Bush to thank for Roberts and Alito, and his father George H.W. Bush for Thomas, who is arguably the worst out of all of them, arguably. Biden, who is now wrapping up his time as president, is finally taking action against the Supreme Court, as its flaws have become more than obvious to the American public and leadership alike. With open corruption and unapologetically partisan stances, Biden has finally called for term limits for justices, all of whom are currently appointed for life. In a post on X, he said, "The United States is the only major constitutional democracy that gives lifetime seats to its high court. Term limits would help ensure that the court's membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for court nominations more predictable and less arbitrary. It would reduce the chance that any single presidency radically alters the makeup of the court for generations to come. I support a system in which the president would appoint a justice every 2 years to spend 18 years in active service on the Supreme Court." He also said he wants to ensure that there is no immunity for crimes a former president committed while in office, and he wants a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, AOC has introduced articles of impeachment against Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, and she has the support of a group called Faithful America. They're a Christian group that opposes Christian nationalism. They've already collected over 7,000 signatures in support of Thomas's impeachment. The petition states, "As a member of the Christian organization Faithful America, I am deeply concerned by the corruption crisis on the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly the unreported gifts from Christian nationalist activists and the refusal of justices connected to support of January 6 to recuse themselves from related cases." So while things may feel dire now, there is reason to feel a tiny bit of relief that things might finally be shifting. The last 10 years with Trump and MAGA have felt like a weird fever dream in so many ways, and maybe people are finally ready to wake up from it. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe for more. Thanks.